Now, after he gets out of his BS, quote, jail term, which is nicer than how most people spend any given year, there's a celebratory party for him. This is the night that we've seen a fair amount of reporting on at the East 71st Street mansion in New York. He goes up to New York, and it's like a who's who of American media, Hollywood. It just, to me, shows you how disgusting and chummy my industry is, media, with, the Hollywood crowd, the it crowd, they think, what they think is the it crowd on Wall Street, and rubbing the elbows because they knew he just got out of jail for solicitation of sex or prostitution with a minor. He was a registered sex offender at that point. And why don't you tell us who was there and just fine was celebrating that night with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, there were many celebrities. I recall that I believe Katie Couric might have been there.
Stephanopoulos, Charlie Rose.
Stephanopoulos was there. I mean, it was
Chelsea Handler. And also Woody Allen. Oh, what a shock.
Well, Woody, I have a picture in my book of Woody and Soon Yi walking, with Jeffrey outside of Jeffrey's house. I mean, they were, of course, pals.
Oh, of course. Woody was Jeffrey's hero.
Wonder why. But Jeffrey, he hired a publicist in New York, as you do, and he attempted to basically pass off what happened in Florida as nothing. There's a direct quote from him where he said, "I am not a sexual predator. I'm an offender. It's the difference between a murderer and a person who steals a bagel." That's how he explained what happened down in Florida to his high society media pals who were invited to New York. And he later, he basically put off, in an off-the-record conversation with a New York reporter, George Rush, for the Daily News. Rush has since put it on record after Jeffrey Epstein's death. Jeffrey passed off what had happened to him in Florida. He said these girls were, quote, like experienced sex workers. He said the statutory aspect of his prosecution was unfair. Because he said, if I had done the same thing in a different state, there'd be no cause to arrest him. Jeffrey was making excuses about his dark side right up until the time he ended up behind bars, where I quote him telling an inmate, one of the in jail companions, by basically saying, "Hey, listen, it wasn't a big deal. These girls were 15 and 16, 17. It wasn't like they were 5 or 6. Jeffrey was always trying to justify his actions, but it bothered him. It bothered him deep down. And he told one publicist, he said, I don't want my obituary to read in the first paragraph that I was a billionaire pervert. So he would tell people what he was doing was nothing, but at the same time, I do think he was, greatly concerned about his reputation.
Well, meanwhile, the people who are behind the scenes say that, and the women, the accusers are saying they heard him firsthand tell them, the women who became his recruiters, the younger, the better.